Today's hearing is entitled Housing Solutions, Cutting Through Government Red Tape, which, as the name implies, is all about what we can do to make it easier to bring new housing units online and available for Americans. This is a goal that I'm sure all of our witnesses and colleagues here share today. As we have heard repeatedly throughout the dozen-plus hearings this subcommittee has held this Congress, the cost of housing is increasingly out of reach for far too many Americans. Today, we will explore one of the biggest drivers of unaffordability, which is layer upon layer of federal, state, and local bureaucratic rules that do little to improve the quality of housing stock while adding additional costs, construction delays, and raising the barriers even higher. Let me give you just one example of what our housing providers are up against. Many of the challenges are local. Some local problems are so bad that they grab national headlines. So for the record, the story of the New York Times back in January, San Francisco tried to build a $1.7 million toilet, and it's still not done. That was the headline of the story, and as it states, 15 months after the city officials were ready to throw a party to celebrate funding for a tiny bathroom with a toilet and a sink, nothing but mulch remains in its place. The toilet project broke down the minute taxpayers realized the city was planning an event to celebrate $1.7 million in state of California funds that local politicians had secured for a 150-square-foot structure. $1.7 million for a bathroom is about 8 times the median home price back in Ohio's 8th District, in a home, I would say, that has multiple bathrooms. So why is it going to cost so much? As the New York Times states, quote, even more confounding was the explanation that the tiny bathroom would take 2 to 3 years to install because of the city's labyrinth of permitting and building process. Governor Newsom later took back the funds, and residents dubbed the saga Toiletgate. The story goes on to state that it takes an average of 523 days in San Francisco for a developer to get the initial go-ahead to construct housing, and another 605 days for building permits. You can't make this stuff up. So Toiletgate is just one example of government red tape run amok, and in this case, state and local problems, but some of the problems are federal. Take this chart behind me. When a developer stays focused on the private sector, this bottom portion in gray shows the process. You don't have to look at all the steps to know that's a pretty efficient process. It takes up just not even 10% maybe of the whole sheet of paper there. But when they try to use federal housing choice vouchers, look at the top portion in white. Look how convoluted that process is, and you're supposed to offer it for the same price. Well, obviously, it's going to take more overhead to use the upper portion of the flow chart than the lower portion of the flow chart. So instead of working to make things more efficient, federal bureaucrats are working to add more cost and complexity and even more uncertainty. For example, HUD and USDA are working on IECC energy code rules, and one of their more recent boondoggles to create yet another rent control project to standardize apartment buildings. All these factors increase costs and decrease supply. Lastly, federal bureaucrats want to focus on everything but the mission in housing. Things aren't going well in federal housing programs, but now they're being directed by the Biden administration to engage in voter registration and setting up ballot drop boxes in HUD properties. $0 are actually appropriated by Congress for the purpose of voter registration by HUD. HUD's supposed to focus on housing. So to accomplish the mission, maybe start with focusing on the mission and maybe take note of lessons learned. We don't need more rent controls or bureaucracy which cap investment or limits. We need more supply. So with that, I look forward to hearing from our witnesses, and I yield back the balance of my time.